The Power of the Precious Blood by Gwen Shaw, Chapter 10, The Curse in the Bloodline. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 6:14, Be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion hath light with darkness? And let me say right here, you can love and forgive and have compassion on your children of darkness without having communion and fellowship with them. It is better for your soul to stay away from some people. Paul gave this warning because he knew the believer was the temple where God dwelt, whereas in the heart of sinner there are many idols. The prophet Amos said in 3:3, Can two walk together except they be agreed? Marriage is a walking together. It's so important to marry the one whom God has created to be your life's partner. In this day, many foolish, reckless people throw their life's callings away by being joined together in holy matrimony with an unholy vessel. The pedigree race. We must never forget that the one we marry will be the father or mother of our unborn child. When God wanted to call out a certain people, he arranged for a pedigree family to be parents to it. Jacob's parents were first cousins, Isaac and Rebekah. His grandparents were half-brothers and sisters, Abraham and Sarah. Why did God do this? Because he wanted a pure people with pure blood. Abraham's father, Terah, who lived in Ur of the Chaldees, was the first to break away from idol-worshipping, religions that the people had fallen snare to, and God wanted the descendants of this godly man would be the fathers and mothers of the future chosen generation. God picked Isaac's wife, and God picked Jacob's. From this royal line came many kings and prophets, and finally our Savior, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. God is not a respecter of persons when it comes to salvation. It's for all who call upon him, but God is a respecter of persons when it comes to choosing who is the elect. Isaac was his elect. Ishmael wasn't. Both had the same father. Jacob was his elect. Esau wasn't. Both had the same mother and father. Why was this? Because Ishmael was contaminated by the Egyptian bondwoman Hagar, and Esau was contaminated by his wives, the daughter of Heth and a nomadic idolatrous prince. God knew he could not use their children because the bloodline was impure. The curse unto the third and fourth generation. Exodus 34 verse 7 says this, Keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquity and transgressions and sin, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the third to the fourth generation. Leviticus 26:39, In the iniquities of their fathers shall they pine away. Numbers 14:23, And your children shall wander in the wilderness for 40 years and bear your whoredoms. The children had to suffer for the unbelief of their parents. Produce after their kind. When God created the animals and fowl, he commanded them to produce after their kind. This law still holds true today. Both man and beast produce after their own kind. That's why it's important for who you marry, for the one that will graft into your descendants all that he and his ancestors ever were. Only a sovereign act of God, where in answer to prayer, can God break the laws of nurture and command. He spoke by his own mouth. Only then can he reach out and touch the life of the one whose bloodline has a special curse on it. Cain fathered the ones that God had to destroy in the flood. Don't think that you can change the man or woman. You are never going to do it. Don't mingle your pure blood with that of sinful cursed generation. It's better never to marry and to have children than to produce after the kind of Cain. A professor of one of the most well-known European Bible schools said people have discovered that after major blood transfusions, the character of the recipients was completely altered and permanently affected. These cases have been studied, and the fact that has been specifically proven. What else could this be than the curse in the bloodstream handed down or transferred by blood transfusion? The greatest sin. Many times we wonder which is the deadly sins in the greatest. It is impossible for us to judge. God alone knows the motives of the heart and the weaknesses of each person, which are inherited and which we try so hard to overcome. As I search through the Word of God, there seems to be one sin that grieves God more than the other, and that is taking of another life. The voice of God thunders from Mount Sinai, Thou shalt not kill, in Numbers 35:30-31. He said, Whoso hath killed any person, the murderer shall be put to death by the mount of witnesses. Moreover, ye shall take no satisfaction for the life of a murderer, which is guilty of death, but he shall surely be put to death. Murderer carried the sentence of death in God's book of rules. God said that killing of another polluted the land. Numbers 35, 33, 34. So ye shall not pollute the land wherein ye are, for the blood defileth the land, and the land not be cleansed of the blood that is shed therein, but by the blood of him that shed it. Defile not therefore the land which ye shall inhabit, wherein I dwell, for I the Lord dwell among the children of Israel. When God gave our fathers the land of America, they brought their Bibles along and built by rules of good book. This sentence for murder was capital punishment. This has been abolished in many states. Thinking we are progressing in thought and improving our country's laws, we are suffering the murderer to live. Yes, even the mass murderer. By this act, we defile the land God has given us. Euthanasia lies ahead. Our forefathers honored and respected their parents, in so doing lived long upon the land which the Lord their God gave them. Today our America is full of old mamas and papas who are forgotten by children and their children's children. Some are existing in rundown old folks' homes with barely enough to eat and no love, doped with drugs to keep them in a state of stupor so they will not be troublesome. Others exist on the streets of our big cities, living in doorways and hovels. Tomorrow it will be worse. Euthanasia is being considered and even desired to rid the land of those who are only a liability and an expense. If the social pension breaks down, which it is on the verge of, the elderly who pay their way through these resources will be thrown out, and euthanasia will become the in thing, as volunteers will be encouraged to die for the young and the vital citizens. And many will volunteer to die, thinking they are doing God and mankind a good deed. For this judgment will come because of their genocidal blood offering. The land is already polluted by the blood of our innocent. God says in Jeremiah 2:34, "In thy skirts are found the blood of the souls and the poor souls of the poor innocents." There is more killing taking place in our America hospital sterile delivery room than the bloodiest battlefield of all time. Last year, 1.1 million of our unborn infants were murdered in their mother's wombs, and God says, "Yet they say, I have not sinned." Jeremiah 2:35. The life of a human is in the blood. Instruments of torture are pushed into the wombs of mothers, tearing their babies apart, spilling their blood out of them. Every life is a gift of God, and if you take a life and hinder it from fulfilling its sojourn, you are a murderer. It makes no difference what the age of the soul is which you cut off from life. Murder is murder. And God said the only way that the land can be cleansed of bloodshed is by the blood of him that shed it. Sometimes it seems to me that God will cause the curse of euthanasia to come on those tomorrow who abort their children today. Study questions. 1. Read Hebrews chapter 12. 2. Memorize Romans 5:9 and 2 Corinthians 6:14. 3. Why should we be careful of whom we marry? 4. What is carried in the bloodline from one generation to another? 5. Tell about a certain pedigree race. How did it begin and why? 6. What does the command "produce after your own kind" mean? 7. What sin grieves God the most and why? 8. Name 3 ways America is in danger of bringing down the wrath of God upon herself.